To you, this man might look like an ordinary Russian guy, but you'd be wrong. He's none other than Sergei Mavrodi, Russia's most infamous scammer. To better understand this story, we must travel back to 1989, during the Soviet Union era, when Sergei Mavrodi, Vyacheslav Mavrodi, and Olga Melnikova founded the company MMM. The mastermind of this organization was Sergei Mavrodi, a man exceptionally gifted in mathematics and physics since childhood. A pronounced introvert, he rarely socialized with other children, maintaining a close relationship with his brother, who was also his only friend. Money was the only thing that brought Sergei happiness, but he could never seem to acquire enough of it. He graduated from the Moscow State Institute of Electronics and Mathematics in 1983, and he had his first run-in with the law for selling illegally obtained films and music. He didn't make much money from it, so he was released after just 10 days in jail. However, this didn't deter him from continuing his illegal activities. A few years later, inspired by the American pyramid schemes of the early 20th century, Sergei began experimenting with small-scale scams. In 1989, the two brothers began devising a new business idea, which quickly took shape. Initially, the company aimed to import electronic devices and computers from other countries and sell them at higher prices. After just 3 years, the business was shut down for tax evasion, forcing Sergei and his associates to pivot to investments and finance. It was here that Sergei began learning about marketing, business development, and company management. With his knack for solving complex mathematical problems in seconds, he quickly became a dangerous player in the business world. Sergei's plan was simple. He set the initial stock price at 1,000 rubles, and as people across Russia who trusted him began investing, he paid them back using the money from new investors, a classic pyramid scheme. The stock price skyrocketed to 125,000 rubles, and with it, Sergei's popularity and that of MMM grew exponentially. To understand how he managed to pull this off, it's important to grasp the dire economic situation in Russia at the time. People often invested out of sheer desperation. Sergei's reputation rose to such heights that in 1993, he was one of the first individuals, alongside the country's president, to deliver a New Year's address to the nation. He positioned himself as a savior, a financial lifeline for the struggling Russian population. Promising returns as high as 3,000%, people began buying MMM shares in massive quantities. Aggressive marketing made Sergei's face recognizable to millions of Russians, who saw him as a savior. Through their advertising, Sergei and his team aimed to create a relatable character with whom viewers could identify, convincing them, if this man in the ad can overcome his struggles, so can I. They hired Lyonya Golubkov, who, alongside his brother and wife, supposedly became rich without doing any work. Traveling the world simply by investing in MMM shares. This tactic attracted a massive number of citizens eager for quick and easy wealth. MMM also employed incentives, like free metro tickets on specific days for investors, further fueling the public's fascination. Even those who suspected it was a scam invested, believing they could profit as early entrants. Now, you might wonder, why would people invest if they knew it was a scam? The answer is simple. Mavrodi convinced them that if they were among the first to invest, they could later take money from those who joined later, perpetuating the cycle indefinitely. But of course, the scheme only enriched Sergei and his inner circle. In the world of finance, MMM became a formidable force, earning up to $1 million a day by March 1994, a staggering amount in the collapsing Russian economy. One of MMM's strategies was the use of so-called MMM coupons, which resembled regular money but featured Sergei Mavrodi's face instead of historical figures. Investors would receive these fake bills after buying shares, which they could then trade with others attempting to join the scheme. This expanded the pool of investors and amplified the pyramid's reach. Mavrodi's image became omnipresent, further boosting his ego because, let's face it, he was a bit of a psychopath. Today, we are constantly bombarded with promises of easy money and are familiar with various scams throughout history. However, in 1990s Russia, especially in rural areas, people knew only hard work and earning money through labor. Pyramid schemes weren't even legally classified as fraud at the time. The communist regime had shaped Russia into a country where starting a business was nearly impossible, education was highly valued, and hard work was respected above all else. Not to mention the severe penalties for fraud. None of this fazed Mavrodi. His advertising and ability to mask his true intentions made him one of the most influential figures in Russia. Most Russians were unfamiliar with investing, let alone pyramid schemes, making the country an ideal breeding ground for such scams, and he was thinking more and more about expanding globally. At one point, he claimed to have so much money that he could fill several rooms with cash. MMM's growing popularity and widespread advertising led to the creation of numerous copycat companies, some promising returns of up to 30,000%. This drew the attention of Russian law enforcement, which began to investigate such cases more closely. Outdated Soviet laws hadn't accounted for Ponzi schemes. Armed with enormous sums of money, these companies often resorted to bribing corrupt politicians and police officers to ensure their survival. Meanwhile, police investigations revealed that between 10 and 15 million people had been affected by MMM alone, with over 200 similar companies operating across Russia. The authorities began cracking down on smaller firms, and Mavrodi knew it was only a matter of time before they came for him. On July 22, 1994, the Russian Ministry of Finance announced that MMM was selling fraudulent securities. This triggered widespread protests against the company, and the very next day, MMM ceased operations. Police later revealed that MMM had been shut down primarily for tax evasion, as no laws against pyramid schemes existed at the time. Massive demonstrations erupted outside MMM headquarters, as the company was estimated to owe between 100 billion and 3 trillion rubles. Attempts were made to recover the lost funds, but Mavrodi shifted the blame to the government, claiming he was not at fault. Many continued to believe in Mavrodi, seeing him as the man who could save them from poverty. People didn't know who to trust anymore, and with no solid case against him, police couldn't arrest Sergei.
Gotcha, bitch!
Realizing he needed a new plan, Sergei decided to run for a seat in the Russian Duma, knowing this would grant him immunity from prosecution. When the moment came to create his own political party, his registration was blocked due to alleged violation of election laws. Perhaps the government feared he would become too powerful. Mavrodi protested, but his efforts only attracted about 200 supporters. In October 1995, his immunity was revoked, leaving him vulnerable to arrest. He quickly tried to pivot by running for president, but his candidacy was rejected due to supposedly fraudulent signatures. By September 22, 1997, MMM declared bankruptcy, and in 1998, an official investigation was launched, leading to an international warrant for Mavrodi's arrest. Many claim that during that time he was hiding in Greece, but most likely he was in Moscow the whole time. He evaded capture for 5 years until February 2003, when he was finally apprehended. For the first time in years, Sergei felt defeated and humiliated, but his schemes didn't end there. In April 2007, he was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. Having already spent 4 years in pre-trial detention, he was released on May 22, 2007. During his time in custody, Mavrodi learned an important lesson. Scams of this nature could only thrive in less developed countries. Without wasting a moment, in 2011, he launched MMM Global, a near-identical replica of MMM, but operating beyond Russia's borders. MMM Global primarily targeted African nations such as South Africa and Nigeria, as well as other countries like China and Brazil. MMM Global began its operations in South Africa, where it wreaked havoc, promising a 30% return on investments within a month or 1% per day. While MMM also targeted wealthier nations, the robust regulatory systems in those countries quickly shut down such schemes. On the other hand, the authorities in less developed countries, like Nigeria, were unable to contain MMM's operations, which left even the poorest citizens in worse poverty. Much like in 1990s Russia, the residents of Nigeria, Zimbabwe, and Kenya were eager for fast and easy wealth, unaware that the seemingly innocent company was, in reality, a scam. In Nigeria alone, MMM stole 60 million within just 2 years. In Africa, these scams were often referred to as gambling, but in this game, there was no way to win. MMM was not the only company Mavrodi was involved in. He established multiple companies under different names across the world, often focusing on Africa. In recent years, online versions of these schemes have become increasingly popular, with MMM and similar companies shifting to heavy online advertising. You've likely encountered such ads on various websites, even on YouTube, where you may be watching this video. One particularly notable evolution of these scams is their shift into cryptocurrency. MMM launched its own cryptocurrency, Mavrocoin, which still exists today and can easily be purchased online, illustrating how such schemes continue to thrive. These platforms attract enough funds, then shut down suddenly, leaving participants with worthless tokens or cryptocurrencies that cannot be traded. From the original MMM corporation in Russia, all that remains are MMM bills, now treated as artifacts or collectibles. In Africa, however, the situation is different. MMM offices and seminars promoting these safe investments can still be found today, a troubling sign that more awareness is needed. Such investments are highly dangerous because, in the end, the only winner is the mastermind behind the scam. It's astonishing that these types of schemes persist, but it must be understood that people in these parts of the world are often uneducated about finance and invest primarily out of desperation. Modern iterations of MMM operate by expanding their pyramid over a year. Once a critical mass of participants is reached, the organizers vanish with the stolen money, only to start the scam anew elsewhere. The mastermind behind it all, Sergei Mavrodi, passed away on March 26, 2018 in a Moscow hospital due to heart problems. Sergei Mavrodi may be gone, but his legacy lives on, not just in the lives he ruined, but in the scams that continue to exploit the desperate and unknowing. His story is a chilling reminder: if something seems too good to be true, it probably is.